The crystal wine glasses clinked against the mahogany dining table as my Uncle George raised his Bordeaux in a mocking toast. To Alexandra, he smirked, still a nobody after 15 years. Laughter rippled around the table. My cousins, my aunt, even my own parents joined in. Only I remained silent, taking a small sip of water while discreetly checking my phone under the table. Net worth of Sullivan Industries down another 12% today. The message from my assistant read, "They don't know you own controlling interest through shell companies. Bankruptcy papers ready when you want them." I smiled, tucking my phone away. If only they knew that the nobody at their table was about to decide their company's fate. 15 years ago, I was just another business school graduate with big dreams. While my cousins joined the family company, Sullivan Industries, I chose a different path. "Throwing away your future," Uncle George had said. "The family business is your birthright." But I had seen something they hadn't. The manufacturing industry was changing and Sullivan Industries was stuck in the past. They refused to innovate, relying on outdated methods and family connections. I took my graduation money, a mere $50,000, and started investing in emerging technology companies. My first big break came when I spotted a small automation firm with revolutionary patents. I invested everything I had, then convinced other investors to join me. Within 2 years, that company's value had increased tenfold. I sold my stake and reinvested in 3 more promising startups. Each success built on the last, but I kept my growing wealth hidden. To my family, I was still the disappointing niece who had abandoned the family business. They assumed I worked as a minor investment consultant, barely making ends meet. If only they knew that my net worth had surpassed theirs 5 years ago. "At least your cousins understand loyalty," my father chimed in, gesturing to Mark and Stephen, who ran Sullivan Industries with Uncle George. "They're carrying on the family legacy." I glanced at my cousins, noting their expensive watches and designer suits, status symbols they could barely afford now that Sullivan Industries was hemorrhaging money. "How's business?" I asked innocently, knowing exactly how bad things were. My analytics team had been tracking their decline for months. "Excellent," Uncle George boasted, but I caught the slight tension in his voice. "We just landed a major contract." Lie, they had lost their 3 biggest clients in the past quarter. "That's wonderful," I replied, taking another sip of water. "I heard there were some issues with modernizing the production lines." Mark nearly choked on his wine. They had been trying to keep their outdated equipment problems quiet. "Minor adjustments," Uncle George waved dismissively. "Nothing we can't handle." "But what about you, Alexandra? Still playing with your little investments?" I thought about my little investments, a portfolio worth billions, including controlling interest in their company, purchased through various shell corporations over the past year. "I get by," I said modestly. "You could have had a real career with us," Aunt Patricia added. "Instead, you chose to be, what exactly do you do again?" "Investment consulting," I replied, the same answer I'd given for years. In reality, I owned one of the largest private equity firms in the country, but they didn't need to know that. Yet. "Such a waste," Uncle George shook his head. "Your cousins are executives at a major corporation, and you're just a nobody?" I finished for him, my finger hovering over my phone under the table. "Well, if the shoe fits," he laughed, raising his glass again. I sent a quick text, "Bring them in." The doorbell rang exactly 3 minutes later. Perfect timing, as always. "Who could that be?" Aunt Patricia frowned. "We're in the middle of dinner." "That would be my assistant," I said calmly, standing up. "She has some papers that need immediate attention." "Papers?" Uncle George scoffed. "What kind of papers could be so important?" "Bankruptcy papers," I replied, watching the color drain from his face. "For Sullivan Industries." The dining room fell silent as my assistant Emma walked in, carrying a leather portfolio. She looked impeccable in her Armani suit, worth more than my cousin's watches combined. "The documents you requested, Miss Sullivan," she said professionally, placing the portfolio in front of me. I opened it slowly, savoring the moment. "You see, Uncle George, while you were all laughing at the family nobody, I was busy building an empire. And over the past year, I've been buying up Sullivan Industries stock through various shell companies." I pulled out the first document, a shareholding statement showing my controlling interest in their company. "That's impossible," Mark stuttered. "Our shares aren't public." "Not the public shares," I corrected him. But the private shares your father sold to cover his gambling debts, the ones your wife, Stephen, sold to pay for her shopping addiction, those were very much for sale. To the right buyer. Uncle George's hands began to shake. You're lying. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, sliding it across the table. The balance displayed made Aunt Patricia gasp. The nobody you've been mocking for 15 years is now worth more than your entire family combined, I said quietly. And as of this moment, I own 51% of Sullivan Industries. The silence in the dining room was deafening. My uncle's face had turned an alarming shade of red, while my cousins stared at the documents spread across their mother's precious tablecloth, their mouths hanging open. Emma, I turned to my assistant, please show them the projections. She pulled out a tablet and displayed a holographic chart above the dinner table. Red lines tracked Sullivan Industries' declining value over the past 5 years. Your company is 3 weeks away from total insolvency, I explained calmly. The automation equipment you refuse to upgrade has failed quality control standards. Your major clients are jumping ship. And the banks? I paused, allowing myself a small smile. Well, they're not very interested in extending more credit to a failing family business. This is absurd. Uncle George finally sputtered. We've been in business for 40 years. We have connections. Connections don't matter when you can't deliver products on time. I cut him off. Your latest quarterly report shows a 60% decline in productivity. Would you like to see the internal audit my team conducted? Mark, always the more practical of my cousins, leaned forward. If what you're saying is true, why shove your hand now? Why not let us go bankrupt? I took another sip of water, enjoying how their expensive wine now sat untouched. Because despite everything, this company was built by my grandfather. And unlike some people at this table, I actually care about his legacy. What do you want? Uncle George demanded. Full control, I replied simply. You all step down, effective immediately. I'll inject the capital needed to modernize operations and save the jobs of 300 employees who don't deserve to suffer for your mismanagement. My father, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. You planned this all along, didn't you? No, Dad. You all did this to yourselves. I just happened to be smart enough to see the opportunity. I turned back to Uncle George. You have until midnight to decide. Either sign over complete control or I'll let Sullivan Industries go bankrupt and buy the assets in liquidation anyway. You wouldn't. Aunt Patricia gasped. We're family. Family? I laughed coldly. Was I family when you mocked my career choices? When you called me a nobody? When you excluded me from every business discussion because I was just a little investment consultant? Emma handed me another document. This shows the personal guarantees you all signed for company loans. If Sullivan Industries goes bankrupt, you lose everything. Your houses, your cars, even that vacation home in Aspen you're so proud of, Uncle George. My cousins exchanged panicked looks. They knew I was right. You have 3 hours, I continued, standing up. My lawyers are waiting at my office. Emma will drive you there when you're ready to sign. And if we refuse? Stephen asked weakly. I pulled out my phone and showed them a pre-written press release. Sullivan Industries declares bankruptcy, family mismanagement cited as cause. Your choice, I shrugged. But decide quickly. That Aspen property would make a lovely corporate retreat. As I walked toward the door, my mother called out, Alexandra, wait. All these years you let us think that I was a failure. I turned back. You all needed to believe that. It made you sloppy, careless. It made you sell shares to cover up your mistakes because who would notice? Who would care? Certainly not the family nobody. The security system beeped and my real car pulled up. Not the modest sedan they thought I drove, but a Rolls-Royce with a chauffeur. One last thing. I paused at the doorway. Next time you want to mock someone at a family dinner, remember this moment. Remember how the nobody bought your company while you were too busy laughing at her to notice. 2 hours later, Emma texted me photos of the signed documents. Sullivan Industries was mine. Uncle George, Mark, and Stephen had resigned from all positions. Their 40 years of arrogance and mismanagement ended with signatures scrawled by shaking hands. The next morning, I walked into Sullivan Industries as its new CEO. The employees gathered in the main hall, nervous about the change in management. Many of them had worked there since my grandfather's time. Things are going to change, I announced. But for the better. We're investing in new technology, better working conditions, and proper training. The Sullivan name will stand for innovation and excellence again. One elderly worker, who remembered me visiting the factory as a child, smiled. "Your grandfather would be proud," he said quietly. I thought about the family dinner the night before, about all the years of condescension and mockery. No more family drama, I assured everyone. From now on, this company will be run on merit, not birthright. Later that day, I had my grandfather's old office cleared out and modernized. But I kept one thing, a small photo of him standing in front of the factory on opening day. He had built something remarkable, only to watch his son and grandsons nearly destroy it through pride and incompetence. The company newsletter went out that afternoon. Alexandra Sullivan takes control. New era begins. Attached was a photo of me in the CEO's office, the same office where Uncle George had once told me I would never amount to anything. My phone buzzed with messages from family members all day. I ignored them all except one. A text from my father. "I was wrong about you. I'm sorry." I replied with 2 words. "I know." The following week, I hosted a board meeting in the newly renovated conference room. As I presented my plans for modernizing Sullivan Industries, I couldn't help but smile at the empty chairs where my uncle and cousins used to sit. Sometimes success isn't just about proving people wrong. Sometimes it's about letting them believe they're right until the perfect moment to show them just how wrong they've been. And sometimes the best revenge isn't serving a cold dish. It's serving it at a family dinner, with a side of bankruptcy papers. The nobody they mocked now owned everything they had spent 40 years building. But more importantly, I was going to build it into something even better. That's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you the perfect cover to become unstoppable.